Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. A vow that I made 5 years ago, and I took up a year ago to broadcast it over the Facebook. And today is the holy day of the appearance of Lord Ramachandra, and it's called Rama Navami. And there's all kinds of things going on here. This huge temple, this huge ISKCON of Houston temple, Sri Sri Radha Nila Madhava's temple. There's processions and festival and international meetings with interventional devotees. So we have the hardcore hearts here who really like to hear the Bhagavatam. Here we have Guru Priya, the husband of Krishna Kripa, the wife of Krishna Kripa, and mother of Gora, who is doing the sound audio recording and for the audiobooks that we're doing every day. And I met her and her family many, many years ago, 1979, in Fiji, and I went to their house and we had a really good time, and they became devotees. So we've been close all that time. And Honest John is with us, also known as Uncle John, and other things, which I probably don't know about. And Bhakti Hannah, who's been a loyal hearer for the last year, and is now taking up the service of editing and being trained by Gora to be full-time editor for this big project that we're doing. So thank you, all three of you, for being here. You mean a lot to me, actually. Hare Krishna. And to all of you also, it's so encouraging to know that so many devotees are taking advantage of hearing the Bhagavatam like this. I urge you to read the Ramayana, especially retold by Krishna Dharma. You can read about it in the Veda base, in the contents, under number 27. It's called, what was it called? Other Scriptures. Anyway, you can find it there, and it's very sweet and very... Lord Ramachandra came to this world to show what it means to be a perfect human being. You know, he wasn't like Krishna. Krishna's got everything. Krishna's the original form of God, and he's got everything. He does the things that Ramachandra does, and he does other things, and it's not so easy to understand Krishna, how he's the supreme absolute truth. But Ramachandra, everyone in India worships Lord Ramachandra because he acts perfect. He's only got one wife. He doesn't have 16,000, which is a little hard for some people to understand, how he can be a complete perfect person and have 16,000 wives. So anyway, here's just a little excerpt from that. I guess I already went away from it. Just for your pleasure, I'll just read for a couple of minutes, just to honor Lord Ramachandra and to give us some transcendental pleasure. Holy. Wow. It didn't keep the place, darn it. Anyway, when Lord Ramachandra was sent to the forest due to the palace intrigues of the servant of his brother's mother, his stepmother, and And what ended up happening was that Ram's father, who was his stepmother was his favorite wife. Rama's stepmother was his favorite wife, and she got influenced by an evil servant and convinced her to demand from a previous promise made by her husband, the king, Dasharatha, the father of Ramachandra, made a promise to her that she'd said, I won't take the promise now, I'll take it later. And she made him promise to send Ramachandra to the forest, although he was about to be coronated as the king. And everyone was in ecstasy, including his father. And there was a very, very piteous scene where he found out, and he had, by Dharma, kasi, in days of yore, people would act even against their own interests, their own personal interests, if it was Dharma, if it was in truth. So anyway, long story short, Bart, the son of this queen, what was her name? KK, thank you, KK. And so he was made the king, but he refused to take it because his older brother Rama was the proper person. So anyway, after Ram was exiled, the king died out of separation. So then the brother Bharat, who was away at the time when this happened, he came and he was furious at his mother, and he took his whole entourage out to the forest where Ram and Sita and Lakshman were to try to convince him to come back. And this is Ram's this is Bharat to Ram. While I was away in the Kaikeya kingdom, and you had already gone to the forest, our glorious father ascended to heaven. Rama didn't know that his father had died. Thinking only of you and lost in grief at your separation, the king left his mortal body. Now by the time-honored rule, you as the elder son should inherit the kingdom. There cannot be any doubt on this point. And also he brought his army, all the citizens, his mothers, they all came to get Ram to come back. Because now he had died, so he was the natural, so the curse was no longer in effect. So as he heard for the first time the news of his father's death, Rama felt as if his heart had been pierced. Raising his arms and crying out, he sank to the ground like a tree filled with blossoms cut at the roots. He lay motionless, with the color drained from his face. Bart quickly sprinkled him with cool water. Rama sat up and held his head, wailing piteously. With my father dead and gone, what shall I do in Ayodhya? Alas, I am surely a wretched and useless son. My father died because of me. Nor was I even able to cremate him. Even when the 14 years expires, I shall not, that was the curse, 14 years in the forest. I shall not have the courage to return to the city, seeing it desolate and bereft of its protector. Who will now speak those kind and loving words my father spoke when he saw me well behaved? Then they did the whole sacred rites out in the forest, in the river. And then Bharata spoke to Rama and Lakshman, and he held his feet while he was speaking. And he said, "The power to rule this world rests only with you, O Rama. I can no more emulate that power of yours than a donkey can emulate the gait of a horse, or a sparrow the flight of Garuda. Indeed, I am dependent upon you. Let the world behold you shining with splendor on Yoja's throne. We shall take you there in state this very day." All the people gathered there called out, "Well said." Upon hearing Bharat speak, with tears streaming from his eyes, Bharat sat looking up at Rama. He hoped desperately that Rama might somehow be persuaded. He could not imagine going back to Ayodhya without him. Seeing his brother and other relatives weeping, Rama felt compassion. Keeping his own grief in check, he replied, "No man is free to act as he pleases. In this world, the embodied soul is dragged here and there by the all-powerful force of providence. No one can control that force. All gains will end in loss. Every meeting ends in separation, and all life has its end in death. As there is no fear for a ripe fruit other than a fall, there is no fear for any man other than death." Everyone listened attentively as Rama spoke, their feelings of sorrow relieved by his instructions. The passing of days and nights quickly exhausts the lifespan of all beings, even as the summer sun sucks up the water in a lake. Rama went on, "You should grieve only for yourself. Why should you grieve for another? Death is our constant companion. He walks with us, sits with us, and having gone a long distance with us, and when we travel, he duly returns with us." Rama still had no desire to return to Ayodhya. He wanted to encourage Bharat and give him strength. Stroking his brother's head, he continued to instruct him. "Beloved brother, the power to prevent one's own death does not exist in a person grieving for another. Our father departed after a long life of piety, and we should by no means grieve. We ourselves have embarked on the very same path trodden by the emperor, and will join him in due course. Let us therefore throw off grief and dedicate ourselves to the pursuit of piety, by which we too shall attain the blessed regions reached by the king." Rama looked all around his hermitage. Thousands of people were crowding on the mountainside, all looking towards him. There was complete silence as Rama spoke. Even the animals seemed silent. Only the sound of the river and the rustling of leaves in the breeze could be heard. Dappled shadows moved over the ground in the late afternoon sun. With a mild smile, Rama continued to address Bharat within the hearing of everyone there. "Father has shed his old, worn-out body, and with an ethereal and undecaying form, he now sports in great happiness. Rather than grieve for him, we should now carefully do his bidding. For your part, you should rule over the earth, dear Bharat, while I, for mine, should remain in the forest until 14 years have expired. This will ensure our welfare in both this world and the next. Under no circumstances should we disobey our virtuous father." Truth personified, Lord Ramachandra. Selfless, completely selfless. Rama spoke for more than an hour, and Bharat felt joy to hear his brother's word of instruction. But he was also dispirited to see Rama's determination to stay in the forest. Anyway, it goes on and on. We'll go on to the Bhagavatam now. I just wanted to honor Ramachandra by reading just a little excerpt to give you an idea of what a noble soul he was and what a perfect example for all human beings. So we are on five. 13, 9. Correct. All right. So let us read the great prayer offered by Srila Sanatana Goswami to the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which, by the way, in the 9th canto, you can hear a very summarized version of the Ramayana, Lord Ramachandra's pastimes. It goes like this: Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya, Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kalidwan Dotitaditya, Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Varshakshadayate, Sarvada Sarvasevyaya, Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin, Madguro Man Mahadana, Man Nisdadaga Mad Bhagya, Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhu tadayin, atini chochata kada, anamun jagadachin mam, premna rit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me, always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, 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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we've reached the 13th chapter of the 5th canto, titled Further Talks Between King Rahugana and Jada Bharat. It means Jada Bharat is now explaining for the 3rd time the teachings, just to make sure he gets it right. Beginning with text 9. The conditioned soul in the material forest is sometimes swallowed by a python or crushed. At such a time, he is left lying in the forest like a dead person, devoid of consciousness and knowledge. Sometimes other poisonous snakes bite him. Being blind to his consciousness, he falls down into a dark well of hellish life with no hope of being rescued. Purport. When one becomes unconscious due to being bitten by a snake, one cannot understand what is taking place outside the body. This unconscious condition is the condition of deep sleep. Similarly, the conditioned soul is actually sleeping on the lap of the illusory energy. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has sung, Kota Nidra Yao Maya Pischa Jada Kole. O living entity, how long will you sleep in this condition on the lap of the illusory energy? People do not understand that they are actually sleeping in this material world, being devoid of knowledge of spiritual life. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore says, Ainate che aushadi maya nashi bada lagi, harinama mahamantra lao tumi magi. I have brought medicine to awaken every living being from perpetual sleep. Please receive the holy name of the Lord, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and awaken. The Katha Upanishad 1.3.14 also says, Uttishta Jagrata Prapya Varnani Bodhada. O living entity, you are sleeping in this material world. Please get up and take advantage of your human form of life. The sleeping condition means loss of all knowledge. In Bhagavad Gita 269, it is also said, Ya Nisha Sarvabhutanam Tasyam Jagarti Samyami. What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled. Even in the higher planets, everyone is under the spell of the illusory energy. No one is really interested in the real values of life. The sleeping condition, called Kala Sarpa, the time factor, keeps the conditioned soul in a state of ignorance, and therefore pure consciousness is lost. In the forest there are many blind wells, and if one falls down in one, there is no chance of being rescued. In a state of sleep, one remains perpetually bitten by some animals, especially snakes. Text 10. Sometimes, in order to have a little insignificant sex enjoyment, one searches after debauched women. In this attempt, one is insulted and chastised by the women's kinsmen. This is like going to take honey from a beehive and being attacked by the bees. Sometimes, after spending lots of money, one may acquire another woman for some extra sense enjoyment. Unfortunately, the object of sense enjoyment, the woman, is taken away or kidnapped by another debauchee. Purport. In a great forest, honeycombs are very important. People often go there to collect honey from the combs, and sometimes the bees attack and punish them. In human society, those who are not Krishna conscious remain in the forest of material life simply for the honey of sex life. Such debauchees are not at all satisfied with one wife. They want many women. Day and night, day after day, with great difficulty, they try to secure such women, and sometimes, while trying to taste this kind of honey, one is attacked by a woman's kinsman and chastised very heavily. By bribing others, one may secure another woman for enjoyment, yet another debauchee may kidnap her or offer her something better. This woman hunting is going on in the forest of the material world, sometimes legally and sometimes illegally. Consequently, in this Krishna consciousness movement, the devotees are forbidden to have illicit sex. Thus, they avoid so many difficulties. One should remain satisfied with one woman, being duly married. One can satisfy one's lusty desires with his wife without creating disturbances in society and being punished for doing so. Text 11. Sometimes the living entity is busy counteracting the natural disturbances of freezing cold, scorching heat, strong wind, excessive rainfall, and so forth. When he is unable to do so, he becomes very unhappy. Sometimes he is cheated in business transactions, one after another. In this way, by cheating, living entities create enmity among themselves. Purport. This is an example of the struggle for existence, the attempt to counteract the onslaught of material nature. This creates enmity in society, and consequently society is filled with envious people. One person is envious of another, and this is the way of the material world. The Krishna consciousness movement aims at creating an atmosphere of non-envy. Of course, it is not possible for everyone to become Krishna conscious, but the Krishna consciousness movement can create an exemplary society wherein there is no envy. That's our duty, kids. That's our duty. Text 12. On the forest path of material existence, sometimes a people is without wealth, and due to this does not have a proper home, bed, or sitting place, nor proper family enjoyment. He therefore goes to beg money from others, but when his desires are not fulfilled by begging, he wants to borrow or steal the property of others. Thus he is insulted in society. Purport. The principles of beg, borrow, or steal are very appropriate in this material world. When one is in want, he begs, borrows, or steals. If begging is unsuccessful, he borrows. If he cannot pay, he steals. And when he is caught, he is insulted. This is the law of material existence. No one can live here very honestly. Therefore, by trickery, cheating, begging, borrowing, or stealing, one tries to satisfy his senses. Thus, no one in this material world is living peacefully. Text 13. Yes, it's not just me. Everybody's like this, top to bottom. Just that knowledge is enough to relieve one so much anxiety, guilt. Text 13. Due to monetary transactions, relationships become very strained and end in enmity. Sometimes the husband and wife walk on the path of material progress, and to maintain their relationship, they work very hard. Sometimes due to scarcity of money or due to diseased conditions, they are embarrassed and almost die. Purport. In this material world, there are many transactions between peoples and societies, as well as between nations, but gradually these end in enmity between the two parties. Similarly, in the marriage relationship, gradually one becomes overwhelmed by some monetary transactions, and one becomes so afflicted by diseases or other dangerous conditions of material life that one almost dies. In the modern age, most countries have developed economically, but due to business exchanges, relationships seem to be strained. Finally, wars are declared between nations, and as a result of these upheavals, there is destruction all over the world, and people suffer heavily. Any pictures of what Syria looks like now? Or what Europe looked like after World War II? Text 14. My dear King, on the forest path of material life, first the person is bereft of his father and mother, and after their death he becomes attached to his newly born children. In this way he wanders on the path of material progress and is eventually embarrassed. Nonetheless, no one knows how to get out of this, even up to the moment of death. Purport. In this material world, family life is an institution of sex. Yan maitunadi grihamedi sukham. Srimad-Bhagavatam 7:9-45. Through sex, the father and mother beget children, and the children get married and go down the same path of sexual life. After the death of the father and mother, the children get married and beget their own children. Thus, generation after generation, these things go on in the same way without anyone's attaining liberation from the embarrassment of material life. No one accepts the spiritual processes of knowledge and renunciation, which end in bhakti yoga. Actually, human life is meant for jnana and vairagya, knowledge and renunciation. Through these, one can attain the platform of devotional service. Unfortunately, people in this age avoid the association of liberated people, sadhu sangha, and continue in their stereotyped way of family life. Thus they are embarrassed by the exchange of money and sex. Text 15. There were and are many political and social heroes who have conquered enemies of equal power, yet due to their ignorance in believing that the land is theirs, they fight one another and lay down their lives in battle. They are not able to take up the spiritual path, accepted by those in the renounced order. Although they are big heroes and political leaders, they cannot take to the path of spiritual realization. Purport. Big political leaders might be able to conquer equally powerful political enemies, but unfortunately they cannot subdue their strong senses, the enemies that always accompany them. Not being able to conquer these nearby enemies, they simply try to conquer other enemies, and ultimately they die in the struggle for existence. They do not take to the path of spiritual realization or become sannyasis. Sometimes these big leaders take up the guise of a sannyasi and call themselves Mahatmas, but their only business is conquering their political enemies. Because they spoil their lives with the illusion that this is my land and my family, they cannot progress spiritually and attain liberation from the clutches of Maya. Text 16. Sometimes the living entity in the forest of material existence takes shelter of creepers and desires to hear the chirping of birds in those creepers. Being afraid of roaring lions in the forest, he makes friends with cranes, herons, and vultures. Purport. In the forest of the material world, there are many animals and birds, trees, and creepers. Sometimes the living entity wants to take shelter of the creepers. In other words, he wants to be happy by being embraced by the creeper-like arms of his wife. Within the creepers there are many chirping birds. This indicates that he wants to satisfy himself by hearing the sweet voice of his wife. In old age, however, he sometimes becomes afraid of imminent death, which is compared to a roaring lion. To save himself from the lion's attack, he takes shelter of some bogus swamis, yogis, incarnations, pretenders, and cheaters. Being misled by the illusory energy in this way, he spoils his life. It is said, Harim bina naiva mritim taranti. No one can be saved from the imminent danger of death without taking shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna Bhakti. Doug, you came in just at the right moment. The word Hari indicates the lion as well as the Supreme Lord. To be saved from the hands of Hari, the lion of death, one must take shelter of the Supreme Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 5:13-16, in the middle of the purport. People with a poor fund of knowledge take shelter of non-devotee cheaters and pretenders in order to be saved from the clutches of death. In the forest of the material world, the living entity first of all wants to be very happy by taking shelter of the creeper-like arms of his wife and hearing her sweet voice. Later, He sometimes takes shelter of so-called gurus and sadhus who are like crane, herons, and vultures. Thus he is cheated both ways by not taking shelter of the Supreme Lords. Text 17. The truth will set you free. The truth will set you free. Text 17. Being cheated by them, the living entity in the forest of the material world tries to give up the association of these so-called yogis, swamis, and incarnations and come to the association of real devotees. But due to misfortune, he cannot follow the instructions of the spiritual master or advanced devotees. Therefore, he gives up their company and again returns to the association of monkeys who are simply interested in sense gratification in women. He derives satisfaction by associating with sense gratifiers and enjoying sex and intoxication. In this way, he spoils his life simply by indulging in sex and intoxication, looking into the faces of other sense gratifiers. I've got to read that again. Looking into the faces of other sense gratifiers, he becomes forgetful and thus approaches death. Purport. Sometimes a foolish person becomes disgusted with bad association and comes to the association of devotees and brahmanas and takes initiation from a spiritual master. As advised by the spiritual master, he tries to follow the regulated principles, but due to misfortune, he cannot follow the instructions of the spiritual master. He therefore gives up the company of devotees and goes to associate with simian people. That means monkey-like, in case you don't know what the word means. Simian means monkey-like. Simian people who are simply interested in sex and intoxication. Those who are so-called spiritualists are compared to monkeys. Outwardly, monkeys appear sometimes resemble sadhus because they live naked in the forest and pick fruits. But their only desire is to keep many female monkeys and enjoy sex life. Sometimes so-called spiritualists seeking a spiritual life come to associate with Krishna-conscious devotees, but they cannot execute the regulative principles or follow the path of spiritual life. Consequently, they leave the association of devotees and go to associate with sense gratifiers who are compared to monkeys. Again, they revive their sex and intoxication, and looking at one another's faces, they are thus satisfied. In this way, they pass their lives up to the point of death. Text 18. When the living entity becomes exactly like a monkey, jumping from one branch to another, he remains in the tree of household life without any profit but sex. Thus he is kicked by his wife, just like the he-ass. Unable to gain release, he remains helplessly in that position. Sometimes he falls victim to an incurable disease, which is like falling into a mountain cave. He becomes afraid of death, which is like the elephant on the back of that cave, and he remains stranded, grasping at the twigs and branches of a creeper. Bhagavatam is so poetic, isn't it? So poetic. The similes are so powerful. Purport. The precarious condition of a householder's life is described herein. A householder's life is full of misery, and the only attraction is sex with the wife who kicks him during sexual intercourse, just as the she-ass does her mate. Due to continuous sex life, he falls victim to many incurable diseases. At that time, being afraid of death, which is like an elephant, he remains hanging from the twigs and branches of the tree, just like a monkey. Text 19. Hare Krishna. O killer of enemies, Maharaj Rahugana, if the conditioned soul somehow or other gets out of this dangerous position, he again returns to his home to enjoy sex life, for that is the way of attachment. Thus, under the spell of the Lord's material energy, he continues to loiter in the forest of material existence. He does not discover his real interest even at the point of death. Purport. This is the way of material life. When one is captured by sexual attraction, he becomes implicated in so many ways and cannot understand the real aim of life. Therefore, Srimad-Bhagavatam 7.5.31 says, Nate vidu swartha gitim hi Vishnum. Generally, people do not understand the ultimate goal of life. As stated in the Vedas, Om Tad Vishno Paramam Padam Sada Pashyanti Suryaha. Those who are spiritually advanced simply look to the lotus feet of Vishnu. The conditioned soul, however, not being interested in reviving his relationship with Vishnu, becomes captivated by material activities and remains in everlasting bondage, being misled by so-called leaders. Text 20. My dear King Rahugana, you are also a victim of the external energy being situated on the path of attraction to material pleasure. So that you may become an equal friend to all living entities, I now advise you to give up your kingly position and the rod by which you punish criminals. Give up attraction to the sense objects and take up the sword of knowledge, sharpened by devotional service. Then you will be able to cut the hard knot of illusory energy and cross to the other side of the ocean of nations. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna compares the material world to a tree of illusion, from which one must cut oneself free. Narupam asyeha tato palabhyate, nanto nachadir nachasam pratishta, ashvatam enam suviruda moolam, asanga shastrena dridena chitva, tatak padam tat parimargitavyam, yasmin gata na nivartanti bhuya, tam eva chadyam purusham prapadye, tatak pravriti prasita purani. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundations is. But with determination, one must cut down this tree with the weapon of detachment. So doing, one must seek that place from which, having once gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything has begun, and in whom everything is abiding, since time immemorial. Bhagavad Gita 5:15, 3-4. Text 21. King Rahugana said, this birth as a human being is the best of all. Even birth among the demigods in the heavenly planets is not as glorious as birth as a human being on this earth. What is the use of the exalted position of a demigod? In the heavenly planets, due to profuse material comforts, there is no possibility of associating with devotees. Purport. Human birth is a great opportunity for self-realization. One may take birth in a higher planetary system among the demigods, but due to the profusion of material comforts, one cannot gain release from material bondage. Even on this earth, those who are very opulent do not generally take care to take to Krishna consciousness. An intelligent person actually interested in getting freed from the material clutches must associate with pure devotees. By such association, one can gradually become detached from the material attraction of money and women. Money and women are the basic principles of material attachment. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore advises those who are actually serious about returning back to Godhead to give up money and women in order to be fit to enter the kingdom of God. Money and women can be fully utilized in the service of the Lord. And one who can utilize them in this way can become freed from material bondage. satam prasangan mamavirya sambido bhavanti vrit karna rasayana kataha. Bhagavatam 3:25-25. Only in the association of devotees can one relish the glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just through a little association with a pure devotee, one can become successful in his journey back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So magnanimous of Prabhupada to give us his intimate association like this. Once he said towards the end in Vrindavan, he said, whatever I have to say, I've said in my purports. Didn't hold anything back. And famously he said also, when he was asked, well, what will happen when you die? And Prabhupada said, I will never die. I will live forever in my books. And we're experiencing what that means right now, this moment. Text 22. It is not at all wonderful that simply by being covered by the dust of your lotus feet, one immediately attains the platform of pure devotional service to Adhoksaja, which is not available even to great demigods like Brahma. By associating with you for just a moment, I am now freed from all argument, false prestige, and lack of discrimination, which are the roots of entanglement in the material world. I'll read that again, this is really important. I am now free, by associating with you for just a moment, I am now freed from all argument, false prestige, and lack of discrimination, which are the roots of entanglement in the material world. Now I am free from all these problems. Purport. Association with pure devotees certainly frees one from the material clutches. This is certainly true of King Rahugana's association with Jada Bharata. King Rahugana was immediately freed from the misgivings of material association. The arguments offered by pure devotees to their disciples are so convincing that even a dull-headed disciple is immediately enlightened with spiritual knowledge. 23. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the great personalities, whether they walk on the earth's surface as children, young boys, avadutas, or great brahmanas. Even if they are hidden under different guises, I offer my respects to all of them. By their mercy, may there be good fortune in the royal dynasties that are always offending them. Purport. King Rahugana was very repentant because he had forced Jada Bharata to carry his palanquin. He therefore began offering prayers to all kinds of brahmanas and self-realized persons, even though they might be playing like children or hiding in some guises. The four Kumaras walked everywhere in the guise of 5-year-old boys, and similarly, there are many brahmanas, knowers of Brahman, who traverse the globe either as young men, children, or avadutas. Being puffed up due to their position, the royal dynasties generally offend these great personalities. Therefore, King Rahugana began to offer his respectful obeisances unto them, so that the offensive royal dynasties might not glide down into a hellish condition. If one offends a great personality, the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not excuse one, even though great personalities themselves might not take offense. Maharaj Ambarish was offended by Durvasa, who even approached Lord Vishnu for pardon. Lord Vishnu would not grant him pardon, therefore he had to fall down at the lotus feet of Maharaj Ambarish. Even though Maharaj Ambarish was a Kshatriya Grihastha, one should be very careful not to offend the lotus feet of Vaishnavas and Brahmanas. Text 24. But point of that pastime is that even though Vishnu would not forgive him when Maharaj Ambarish forgave, then he got freed from the... So it's the Vaishnava's duty to forgive, even when Lord Vishnu won't. Translation, that's how we become pure devotees. Srila Shukadeva Goswami continued, "My dear king, O son of Mother Uttara, there were some waves of dissatisfaction in the mind of Jada Bharat due to his being insulted by King Rahugana, who made him carry his palanquin. But Jada Bharat neglected this. Wow. And his heart again became calm and quiet like an ocean. Although King Rahugana had insulted him, he was a great Paramahamsa. Being a Vaishnava, he was naturally very kind-hearted, and he therefore told the king about the constitutional position of the soul. He then forgot the insults because King Rahugana pitifully begged pardon at his lotus feet. After this, he began to wander all over the earth, just as before. Purport. In Srimad-Bhagavatam 3:25-21, Kapila Dev describes the symptoms of great personalities: Titikshava, Karonika, Suridat, Sarvadehinam. A saintly devotee is certainly very tolerant. He is the friend of all living entities, and he does not create enemies within the world. A pure devotee has all the qualities of a sadhu. Jada Bharat is an example of this. Due to the material body, his senses were certainly agitated. He was insulted by King Rahugana. But later, due to the king's humble submission, Jada Bharat excused him. It is the duty of everyone desiring to return to Godhead to become submissive, like King Rahugana, and beg pardon of Vaishnavas one may have offended. Vaishnavas are generally very kind-hearted. Therefore, if one immediately submits himself at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, one is immediately cleared of offensive reactions. If one does not do so, the reactions will remain, and the results will not be very palatable. Text 25. After receiving lessons from the great devotee, Jada Bharat, King Rahugana of the state of Sauvira became completely aware of the constitutional position of the soul. He thus gave up the bodily conception completely. My dear king, whoever takes shelter of the servant of the Lord is certainly glorified, but because he can without difficulty give up the bodily conception. Purport. As stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shasta Koi, Lavamatra, Sadhu Sange, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. It is a fact that if one takes shelter of a pure devotee, one attains all perfection, even if the association is a short one. A sadhu is a pure devotee of the Lord. It has been our practical experience that the first instruction of our spiritual master infused us with Krishna consciousness, so that now we are at least on the path of Krishna consciousness and can understand the philosophy. That's Prabhupada's humility speaking. As a result, there are many devotees engaged in this Krishna consciousness movement. The whole world is revolving under the bodily conception. Therefore, there must be devotees all over the world to deliver people from false bodily conception and fully engage them in Krishna consciousness. When that girl came yesterday, it was so touching. These 4 students came yesterday from the program that Bharata is organizing now. There are 4 of them. And one of them in particular, when it came time to pass around the microphone, she just started to cry. And she said, I want out of here. I don't know how to do it. Basically, that's what she said. and no one understands it. When I try to explain it to others, they think I'm crazy. And she was crying. So we have to give shelter. We have to be such that we can give real shelter. Hare Krishna. I'll stop the reading to there for that. With that, yes. Oh, thanks very much. I tell you, you should become an editor or something. Well done. Text 26. King Parikshit then told Chukadev Goswami, "My dear Lord, O great devotee sage, you are omniscient. You have very nicely described the position of the conditioned soul, who is compared to a merchant in the forest. From these instructions, intelligent men can understand that the senses of a person in the bodily conception are like rogues and thieves in that forest. And one's wife and children are like jackals and other ferocious animals. However, it is not very easy for the unintelligent to understand the purport of this story, because it is difficult to extricate the exact meaning from the allegory. I therefore request your holiness to give the direct meaning." Purport. There are many stories and incidents in Srimad-Bhagavatam that are described figuratively. Such allegorical descriptions may not be understood by unintelligent men. Therefore, it is the duty of the student to approach a bona fide spiritual master for the direct explanation. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 5th canto, 13th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Further Talks Between King Rahugana and Jada. And if that's not enough, he's going to say it again, just to make sure we get it right and won't forget. But still, time is so strong, we forget anyway. And we have to go through the Bhagavatam again and again and again for the rest of our lives. And if we do that, we're going back home, back to Godhead. It's as simple as that. Not as easy as that, but as simple as that. Okay. Pranakaruna, you earned something. You earned the mic there. You want to say something? Ask something, say something, reflect, whatever. Just asking, you don't have, I mean, I'm not...
I don't have anything particular in mind.
Okay. I mean, I have a reflection. I usually don't give the reflection, but my reflection is that this issue that came up towards the end, about how important it is to forgive. Because in the material world, it's impossible not to bump into each other. Especially in the heat of getting something done and, emergency or whatever it is. It's just impossible to avoid that completely, unless you go into the forest or become a cave dweller like me. But even then, there are all kinds of things that come your way. You can't avoid it. It's not possible, Nowadays, even if you go into the Himalayas, you're liable to run into a machine gun turret, like pointing at the other country. It's China and it's Pakistan and it's India, and they're up there, in places that no person can live, pointing at each other. Even near the holiest places in the world, it's going on, What to speak of, modern developed, countries' politics. It's too much, Yeah. So I was just thinking how important it is that we actually learn this art of forgiving one another, When we're in the company of devotees, usually it's innocent or trivial kind of things that Prabhupada said should be easily forgotten and forgiven. And that's really that's a really powerful. I mean, actually, forgiveness is a way to overcome anger. It says that in the teachings of Bhishma Dev, when Bhishma Dev was passing away. You know, there's a list of anomalies and counteractions to those anomalies. And there it says that if one wants to overcome anger, one must learn how to forgive. But really forgive from the heart, from the core of the heart. And that really pleases Krishna, big time. Go ahead.
I felt like the last three texts were kind of connected in a way. Whenever we were reading text 24, I will just reread it. Srila Shukadev Goswami continued, "My dear king, O son of Mother Uttara, there were some waves of dissatisfaction in the mind of Jad Bharat due to his being insulted by King Rahugana, who made him carry his palanquin. But Jad Bharat neglected this, and his heart again became calm and quiet like an ocean. Although King Rahugana had insulted him, he was a great Paramahamsa. Being a Vaishnava, he was naturally very kind-hearted, and he therefore told the king about the constitutional position of the soul. He then forgot the insult, because King Rahugana pitifully begged pardon at his lotus feet. After this, he began to wander all over the earth just as before." When we were reading this, I thought of what you told me once. You said that, to take offense or to be angry at people for things that they've done, you go down to their level. And as we were reading this, I saw how Jad Bharat was so exalted, and how King Rahugana, acting in the way that he acted, how it says in the Bible, "Forgive those, for they know not what they do."
Yeah.
Jad Bharat had the position where he felt, I think it said pitifully in the purport.
Piteously.
Yeah. It was so nice to read that, and as we were reading that, I felt different things. I remembered that instruction you gave me, and I also felt, how nice it was for you to read to us like this, because it's just different. And in the last paragraph, it said that, "Therefore, it is the duty of a student to approach a bona fide spiritual master for the direct explanation." And I feel like you're reading Prabhupada's words as it is, and when you relish it, there's no need for further explanation because it's just there. I just thought that was nice how they were all connected.
Hare Krishna, very nice. Thank you very much. I remember when Prabhupada was here and we used to speak to us, especially in the very beginning when we didn't know anything practically. And he had this power that he could just say something, that was not so easy for us to understand because of our background and all the things we had done. And yet, just because the quality of his sound, and so I really appreciate what you said, because I'm trying my best to dedicate my life to vibrating his sound, not my own. I mean, I know I say a lot sometimes, but I'm trying to mainly just read his books and let the quality of his thoughts and his sound, touch and purify the heart and give understanding. It gives understanding. Thank you. That was wonderful. Truly wonderful. What does Honest Abe think?
It's pretty much self-explanatory that.
Well, it's just what she said just now. Give him the.
I gave today. I remember I had all those books. I gave them back.
Oh yeah.
was kind of freeing a little bit, you know. I was thinking about, I still had some attachment to some of those old beliefs and stuff. I'm like, well, there's, you have to be able to let go of what doesn't serve its purpose anymore, and take up what's positive and what's going to do you some good. So it sometimes it's like, I don't like to use biblical analogies a lot, but it says if your eye offends you, cut it out. And literally, it's not what it means, but I think we have to do that same thing in Krishna consciousness too. You know, learn how to forgive, learn how to start making good decisions, and also taking up good practices and leaving off what doesn't serve our purpose anymore.
Yeah, I mean that's a nice way, and as usual, you typify the explanations in the scriptures in very down to earth and simple language. It's very wonderful, actually. You know, and when you were talking, and also when you were talking, I was thinking of how it was that Jada Bharat was a Paramahamsa, and yet when this, you know, angry king, you know, got in his case, he felt some agitation, you know, but by clearing his heart, by speaking the truth, it just all went away immediately. So sometimes, you know, you have to clear it. If you don't clear it, then it'll sit in your heart and fester, you know, and then you'll start to feel bad things about just anyone, or to speak about the person that you know, that offended you or something. And the way it was so nice. And he just gave it up and just started walking around again. It was far out.
That's what's nice about this readings. They're like a purificatory, you know, purifying process. You know, if we have any bad feelings or something during the day, it's a nice little sanctuary to come and get revived and put the charge back on the battery.
There you go. Put it back on the charge. Put the battery back on the charge. Nice. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Okay, I think we'll stop now because it's getting close to 6 and there's going to be another program. Thank you very much. Lord Ramachandra ki jai. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Jada Bharat ki jai. Maharaj Rahugana ki jai. He surrendered at the end of the day. Gaur Premanandi. See you tomorrow at 4:30 Central Time, America. Hare Krishna.